I'm trying to put my thoughts yet again on YouTube for the students who could not hear me in the afternoon while I was doing a presentation in Acme Engineering College. There I was speaking for the students, and since we stay in Nepal, I thought it is very wise for me to use the colloquial Nepalese language and more desirable English in the YouTube. My presentation is regarding the architecture as we see around the world. If anyone wants to know what is architecture, for me, architecture is a convenience or the expression of how we live in a place. If we go around countryside or the remote areas of the country or in a village, we are always greeted with the house as you see in the picture, but the material which is easily available. Here it is stone, I think this is brick, but if you notice the roof, it is a thatched roof. This thatch is what they get after the paddy, which is their cover, and this is their house. Imagine someone staying in a house like this, but house is a necessity. Better economy can give you a house, better house, as you see in the picture below. This has more refined architectural expression, but it has so many elements which is contextual, like the stair you see leading to the door at the top. Is architecture a reflection of the material we get locally? If you notice the picture at the bottom of the slides, there you see row of houses constructed with more refined roofing system, that is a tin roof, which has much better advantage against this thatch roof. But this tin roof is also a replacement of the tiles, which we used to get easily a decade, maybe 50 years back. So nowadays tiles are gone, or if they are there, they have been used as an expression of heritage in better buildings, bigger buildings. But in a rural setting, all the thatch roofs are being replaced by tin roof. Now, is architecture driven by technology? Yes, architecture has to be driven by technology. The technology is highly contextual. It depends on the location, or more precisely the GPRS of a particular setting. In villages, technological outreach is very small, so you still have to manage with thatch roof. And a better place, this is being replaced by tin roof. And an urban setting, if you see, you start seeing a building like this. This is obviously one of my design, which is yet to take off. But here, all the facade is being replaced by glass and steel. This is how you refine and innovate and use technology for a better architectural reflection. Is architecture driven by the minimalistic attitude of a designer? It's a very difficult question to answer anyway. But the fact is, if you notice the pictures which I pasted at the top and at the bottom of the right hand side, you'll see two design approaches. One is simply a box with opening onto the exterior where people tend to connect the greenery, sky to the openings in the glass, and one at the top with much more refined building material like concrete and steel. But if you see the contextual use of architecture, you don't see much elements there. Walls and their openings to draw light and ventilation. And if you notice the picture on the left hand side of the seat, there you see a building. Then you'd ask the architect, is the building design regulated by the planning parameter or the density requirement of a particular city? Yes. Earlier, when the population explosion was not there, people tend to stay in a small places. But in a city, as a city gets bigger, the activities gets concentrated. Then obviously you need to have a house which has to be bigger in size and has to accommodate many different kind of people, many different section of people, and there you tend to get a house which gets larger than life and tend to cover the skyline. The one apartment is the apartment we are doing in Kathmandu, which has more than 100 apartments, different units, and this all happened because of the revised city guidelines, planning parameters of the city, where we're allowed to build bigger residence in an elevated platform. You call them apartments. This is one of the luxury apartments in Kathmandu Valley. This is architecture driven by the availability of the artisans. If you see the picture there, one with decorative embellishment and one with more rubbish looking kind of thing with the shutters at the lower end. The stark difference in the architecture is all because of the availability of the artisans at that time and the present time. Earlier the buildings used to have more meaning. People used to take the building in a different perspective, and building used to have lots of detailing. Similarly, the artisans were there. Now with the development in construction technology, the design element of utility has certainly diminished, and what we do is we simply tend to follow what others do. So the windows, screen windows, are being replaced by wooden windows with the glass panes, and the lower portion which people used to use as verandas or dalans have been converted into subs. That is mainly because of the ease for the access to services. People have started using lower floors in Kathmandu as a service outlet of a shop. This is architecture driven by the passion of an investor, or more precisely, the aspiration of an investor. All architects are more or less guided by what our clients want at the end of the day. He might be asking to do residence, he might be asking to do your office complex or a shopping center, like the one which is the right and bottom. This is one of our project in Kathmandu for a business square. But whenever you are with your clients, they only give what they need. But what we build for them is the reflection of what they aspire it to be. So all the good architecture of the world of different time are the aspirations of the investor, may be a ruler or a businessman or a bender seeking an outlet, creating a roadside architecture like the one on the left hand side of the picture. The small setting they create in the rural landscape or in the urban landscape is the way they express and put their utilities across to create an expression of architecture in a small form. Is architecture driven by religion and self-esteem of rulers of particular era? This is very true in our context of Nepalese architectural heritage. The Darbar Square in Patan, the one in the picture, in Bhaktapur and in Kathmandu, were more or less driven by the religious belief and self-esteem of the kings, more precisely the Malla kings of that time. The pagoda architecture of Nathpol, Sikhara architecture of Krishna Mandir in Patan, and the palatial complex mansions of Kathmandu Darbar Square, Patan Darbar Square and Bhaktapur Darbar Square were the reflection of the self-esteem of the rulers of that time. A good part of the story is our artisans, architects of that time were so very expressive in their built form. They have become the global heritage of the world, where we should be proud of for the heritage of Nepalese architecture. Now the big question comes, is architecture driven by heritage and convenience? I am keeping two pictures here. One on the left is the architectural expression of the past, which has been glorified by its acceptance as a world heritage. And one on the right is the architecture of the convenience. Is wherever you go, people always tend to express their roots, what little things they could fit into their building in the form of embellishment. This becomes so vividly evident in Nepalese context that houses built after the 70s all had this sloped roof projection covered with tiles. So that becomes a convenience in architecture, and this kind of form is so rampant in Nepalese context that you at times tend to lose bearings with the architectural expression of many different locations, and they have become very confusing at times also, The copy and paste attitude of Nepalese artisans has become so very evident that almost all the houses have followed this heritage smaller form into their building by either putting them on the roof or in the parapet walls embellishments. Is architecture driven by religion? This is very true if you start opening the books of Nepalese history of architecture. And I'm putting three pictures. One on the right top is famous Changnaran temple built in 12th century. It's one of the very rare and very eloquent expression of Nepalese architectural pagoda form with the decorative embellishment of this roof overhang and the spiraling pinnacle at Gujur, and the one in the left bottom is stupa architecture of Baudhanath and Sikara architecture of Kathmandu Pathan is glorification of religion in the forms of architecture. So I can say that the architecture of the past were driven by the beliefs of the kings and the rulers of that time. But they have made us very proud. The last one for you all students is, obviously as a student, aspiring to be a better architect in future, you'd want to know what is good architecture. This is also a very big question in my mind all the time also, but this somehow got more vivid with my attendance in Datum Speakers Forum in Malaysia, where I had an opportunity to hear from Takaru Tezuka, the famous architect of Japan. His story is very interesting. While he had to express the way people live and use the rooftop in Japan, a movement he only created. The house on the left is a roof house of Japan, which became very famous, and the two pictures are the pictures of a school he designed, revolves all at the roof. This particular school he was talking about had a roof on a mild inclination. For cities in Japan, finding a space for, especially for the kids to express themselves with the movement, is somehow regulated by the way they live in the cities. So this particular school, as soon as the students used to jump up from the board, thus it was 100% sure that they'll make at least 5 rounds at the rooftop before they attend the classrooms. So now the expression of architecture took a very different meaning, with only an inclined roof form for a school rooftop became an expression of the freedom of students there. So the architecture can take a very different meaning at present times. Last one, if I have to address you to all students, is the architecture has started taking many different meanings. So it is not necessary that you have to build bigger, but you try to create a convenience, you try to create that comfort level, you try to understand your client. So at the end of the day, if you're convinced enough, you'll be able to convince your clients and create an ambience like the Japanese architect has done and create a revolution. I think he is the most talked about architect for the kindergarten school comfort. So with this, I should end my presentation. Thank you.